Hey guys, what's going on? It's Eli, back with another review video, and welcome to the Mission Impossible Review Marathon. Yes, the Mission Impossible Review Marathon. And, yep, I mean, of course, leading up to Final Reckoning, you get the drill already, so yes. So yes, the Mission Impossible Review Marathon, where yes, I will be reviewing the entirety of the Mission Impossible films, and of course, have to start with the one that, well, started it all in 1996, simply titled Mission Impossible. Yep. From director Brian De Palma, and of course, with the talents of Tom Cruise, Vin Rhames, Jon Voight, the ones that started it all, and yeah. Now, I've, of course, have seen, loved, and have enjoyed the Mission Impossible franchise, the movies, and yeah. And of course, I've seen the first one, and yeah. Having rewatched it after such a long time, I mean, yeah, because it's still a fantastic film, and the one that started it all, and what made Tom Cruise go big yet again. Yes. What the first Mission Impossible film had to offer. And by the way, because the first Mission Impossible film being the first and only Mission Impossible film to be an hour long. Just, yeah, like up to 1 hour and 50 minutes. Yeah, because the rest of them being up to 2 hours. But yeah. You know, the story, the plot, and everything that the first one has to offer is amazing, and, you know, with great chemistry, and with the talents of whom is in this film, Brian De Palma's direction, and, yeah, because, you know, this being a game changer for, you know, Tom Cruise, and, you know, you get what I'm saying, just, yeah. Yeah, and just, like, me, I don't know, because, like, I don't know, like, if it would be one of my top favorite Mission Impossible films. Like, probably is, but, you know, I mean, just overall, you know, the first Mission Impossible film from 1996, yes, like, what more do I have to say? It's extraordinary, it's fantastic, and where it would lead to next, you know, and what Paramount would be doing, and this becoming a big franchise for Paramount. I mean, you know, right next to, say, Star Trek, and with the movies, just, yeah. But anyways, yeah, just overall, the first Mission Impossible film from 1996, it's fantastic. All right, so, as always, for me, read the description / the story. When the U.S. government operative Ethan Hunt and his mentor, John Phelps, go on a covert assignment that takes a disastrous turn, Jim is killed, and Ethan becomes a prime murder suspect, now a fugitive. Hunt recruits brilliant hacker Luther Stickle, you know, just go with Luther, and maverick pilot Franz Krieger, yeah, to help him sneak into a heavily guarded CIA building to retrieve a confidential computer file that will prove his innocence. Okay, now a little bit of background that I can think of and say, because yeah, well, I mean, of course, as we all should know, and to keep in mind, that Mission Impossible began with the TV series that ran from the 1960s to the 70s, and, well, at a certain point, Paramount was wanting to do a movie based off of Mission Impossible, but they never could find a way to get it underway and to make it happen. But it wasn't until enter Tom Cruise, when just so happens that he was a huge fan of the TV series when he was young, and the fact that he was soon about to start his own production company, you know, he wanted, you know, the considerations for a Mission Impossible film to be his first, and, you know, convincing Paramount and to put on a $80 million budget? Yeah, I think so. And, yes, so it's thanks to Tom Cruise that, you know, Paramount attempting to do a Mission Impossible film finally became reality. Yes, so, give props to Tom Cruise and where that would lead to next. Not only him starring in it, but the fact that, yeah, this would become a big thing in his acting career. And also, originally, at one point, the original cast members of the Mission Impossible series, they were considered to come back and reprise their roles, and apparently what happened was, and according to Martin Landau, who was one of the cast members of the show, apparently the idea was for their characters to come back, and obviously on a mission, and they would be killed at a certain point during the first act of the film. But yeah, it's understandable that what they would do next. The cast stepped down. Like they turned down appearing in this when they found out. I don't blame them, but come on, don't you think like maybe that probably was not necessary? Having them be killed off. I mean, come on, you could have done. They could have done something with them, and if they wanted to connect, the TV show with the movies, like new faces that step in for IMF and with the, past members of IMF, you know what I'm saying? Just that would have been great. Like, you could have easily thrown in, say, Martin Landau or Leonard Nimoy in any of those films. Imagine what their characters would be doing and probably at times helping them. I mean, come on. I mean, it's like, I don't know, like, and speaking more of Nimoy, because it's like how he was brought back in the reboot, of Star Trek and the different timeline, the Kelvin timeline. I don't know, like, that's an example, but I'm sure you get where I'm going with this. That would have been nice, but apparently that's what they wanted to do at first. Have them be killed off, and yeah, smart move on the original cast, not doing it, and is it me or probably that was like a slap in the face to them. That was like an insult. Probably so, yeah. Not to mention, one of the original directors of the Mission Impossible series was brought in for, I think, creative advice or something? Yeah, but backed out, and especially because that, and with Brian De Palma, the first Mission Impossible film was going to be very different from the TV series, so, yeah. But at the same time, in a good way, and that's what's important, and yeah. Alright, so with the bit of background I've got, and I can explain as best I can, yeah. Alright, getting into the film itself. So, like, it starts off with, actually, because, yeah, I mean, the way the movie first opens, because, we see this one guy being interrogated, and someone is, we can tell, if we could tell already what's going on, and, like, an agent is watching this on a monitor, and this guy being questioned, and when, and basically, yeah, our introduction to one of the main characters, Ethan Hunt, being played by Tom Cruise, yes. And the way the movie opens, like with the credits and the Mission Impossible theme, and by the way, Danny Elfman, who did the music and score for the first Mission Impossible film, fantastic. And how he does the Mission Impossible theme. And it's great to see that, when it came to the Mission Impossible films, they still, kept and used the same theme music from the show. I mean, why would they not? Just, yeah. I think a lot of people, like, had they not, then probably people would have said something. Don't you think? And yeah, we would. But anyways, even thinking about it, like, oh, yeah, it's a good thing that they kept it. Like, oh, could you imagine if they didn't and wrote a different piece of theme music for the Mission Impossible films? I don't think so. Yeah. But where the story starts off, well, after getting our introduction to Ethan Hunt, well, one of the other main characters we are introduced to, whom is on an airplane and, with a flight attendant saying something secret to Jim and giving him a specific, tape to play on the airplane. And, a mission that he's assigned to, and with other Mission Impossible Force members, or IMF for short. Where basically they have to stop this one agent who, supposedly he's a traitor, and he's going after the knock list, I believe, yeah, because the knock list, which basically containing the agents, like, secret, like, code names and such, and the knock list, well, The knock list, which is short for, now, what is it? The non-official cover. Okay, yeah. And yeah, so basically it's a list, a top secret document containing the real names of the covert agents working in Eastern Europe, yeah. And so, yeah, they have to prevent and stop the rogue agent, which being Alexander Galestein, if I by any chance am pronouncing that name right, and I'll just go with Alexander, yeah. And Alexander, being played by, yes, Marcel Lours, if I'm saying that right, yeah. And our cast of characters who are assigned and joined with Jim, well, Ethan being one of them, but also we have Jim's wife, who is also, like her husband, a part of the IMF, Claire Phillips, and Claire being played by Emmanuel Burt, if I might be butchering her last name a little, again, you know me sometimes, as well as, and he's uncredited, I don't know why, but just, yeah, it's just one of those things, Jack Harmon, whom we did see earlier at the start of the film, played by Emilio Estevez, you know, if I might be butchering his full name too, yeah. There's also Sarah Davies, yeah, being played by Kristen Scott Thomas. And there's also Hannah being played by, and I'll try my best to pronounce her full name, Ingeborga Dabakunati, if I by any chance got it close. Yeah. So, again, they're all brought together and they're tasked to stop the rogue agent, which being Alexander, from stealing the list. As its exposure will endanger the lives of the agents. Yeah, of course, we can't let that happening. But unfortunately, like, when they proceed into where they're supposed to go, to this palace, and, like, there's a party happening, and each of them, they're in special disguises, especially Ethan, because, yeah, and with his introduction, the start of this movie, like, you know, the masks, the disguises that he has on, oh yes. And everybody's in their positions, and Jim, he's monitoring everything that's going on. But unfortunately, the mission goes horribly wrong, and each of those team members, one by one, starting with Jack and from there on, each of them getting killed. Like, jeez Louise, Jack? He got impaled when he was in the elevator shafts. Like, some spiky things. It's like they just come out and, like, the elevator's going up and he's on top of the elevator and in the eye. Jeez Louise. That I forgot when I was doing a rewatch. And the female members, each of them getting killed. And even when, like, say, like Ethan and Sarah, yeah, them on Alexander's tail, especially Sarah, but Jim, and when he evacuates the place that he's in, you know, their hideout in a building, apartment building, well, Jim telling them to abort, because if anything were to happen, if they were discovered, their cover was blown, they have to abort, and thus, yeah, Jim ordering them to abort, but Ethan, he's not risking, like, the knock list to be taken and so on. And thus, you know, Sarah most nobly, you know, following Alexander's trail. And as for Ethan, well, yeah, trying to catch up with the others, and most nobly to Jim. But yeah, again, one by one, the team members are getting killed, and even when it comes to Jim, and a camera, like, you know, calling device, I guess you could say, and Ethan witnessing that, yeah, Jim did get shot, hearing the gunshots, and then when seeing blood on Jim's hands, and I've been shot, Ethan, and then going over the bridge, and just, yeah, even when also Claire, apparently she got killed in an explosion inside a car, and just, yeah, by this point, all of the members are dead. And Ethan's the only one left, and when he calls up the IMF that the team is dead and he's all that remains, and when he arranges a meeting with one of the main guys at IMF, which being Kitteridge, yeah, if I am pronouncing that right correctly, being played by Henry Czerny, yeah. And, well, because what the heck happened? Well, this thing, called, Mole Hunt. So the whole thing on Mole Hunt, well, basically, yeah, because they were discovered, they were followed and such, Jim and the others, because a way for them to be lured and such, and one of them being the mole, and, well, and the fact that, whom is the mole, is working alongside and has been talking with this arms dealer, and the mentioning of, job, yeah, the numbers, job, 3-4, I think, is, yeah, 314, sorry, yeah. And that it's a code, basically. That's basically, because of the mole, the code used to identify whom is the mole. Yes, job 314. And Kittredge, whom, he's one of the directors, I should say, directors of IMF. He suspects that it's Ethan who's the mole. But we know that's not the case, and yeah, us, the audience, yeah, I mean, how can he? And this was unbeknownst to Ethan, was it not? And to the others? Well, I mean, one of them who got killed, but probably you know by now, but anyways. And Ethan making a run for it, like he, it just gets intense, and you know that something's gonna happen, right? Like, what, is Ethan gonna go after Kittredge or what? Well, whips out something very small and throws it at it's like a fish tank or something, because they're at a restaurant, and it explodes, and causing a lot of water to flood, and thus Ethan making a run for it. Now he's become a fugitive, and, again, him being suspected as the mole, which of course he's not. That's not the case. And when making his way back, and at one point, he discovers on the whole thing of Job 314, and it's, the word job is actually pronounced Job. Job. Job 1:3 from the Bible. Yeah, so again, being used, because 314, it's from a Bible verse, from the book of Job at Phillips. Yeah, Phillips. Uses it, and it's, spoilers, Phillips. Jim Phillips, but until I talk more about Jim, whom we think is dead. And he uses it as it's used as a code word, because of, the whole thing of the mole. And, Ethan doing his research, and even when at one point, he's starting to, doze off, but then, and we can tell right away that he's probably dreaming about this, that Jim is making his way back into the building, and, why did you not come for me, and so on. And yeah, sure enough, he wakes up. And then he's greeted by someone whom we thought was dead, but apparently not. Claire. Claire's alive. And Ethan is refusing to believe this, even, gun pointing her, and just, I saw you die, and intimidating her and getting her to talk and such. But eventually, it's all calmed down, and what Claire explains to Ethan. But anyways, and by the way, Safe House, that's the name of it, Safe House, that they're at. And by the way, how Claire is still alive, well, and as she explains, because, I almost forgot, she thankfully escaped from the car before it exploded, so, yeah. And, like I said, like I brought up of Job, because, at first we, for us, the audience, and Ethan, thought it was referring to as job, like a job for something, but no, from the Bible. It's a Bible verse, so yes. And then eventually, and by the next day, Ethan makes an arrangement to meet with the arms dealer who goes by Max. And it turns out Max is this older British lady, and Max being played by Vanessa Redgrave, yeah. And the dialogue that they each have, and, they seem to get along pretty well at times. And Ethan making a deal with Max that he will get the actual list in exchange for a lot of money, $10,000, yeah. But, and not to mention that at that point, CIA agents have made their way, and obviously they're going after and trying to locate and find Ethan, and Kittredge being there, of course. So it's settled, like, yeah, Ethan will get the actual knock list, but he's gonna need some help from, I guess, yeah, best way to put out, ex-members of IMF, ex-agents, yeah. And with the help of Claire, because, yeah, Claire being there, and, well, and I think that goes for a lot of us when watching this movie. Is there something about Claire and the fact that not only did Ethan survive, but she did as well? Is she onto something? Like, you don't know at first, like, I mean, that goes for a good chunk of characters, like, whose side are they on, especially if they're on Ethan's side, and that goes for Claire. But with the help of Claire, yeah, because they get more help, and as I said, ex-agents that come in and help Ethan, and those, of course, being Luther, being played by Vin Rams, and Krieger, being played by Jean Reno, as I brought up reading the description / the story. So again, they're brought in, the two of them, in order to break into the CIA headquarters to retrieve the actual list. And the CIA headquarters in the film being located at Langley, Virginia. And Ethan laying out all the details to both of them, and how they're going to get into the CIA headquarters and the systems they have and go through the air ducts, and not to mention the one room where, yeah, the list is kept, and something about the floors, and like if like a drop of water hits, then an alarm goes off, like a heating system, just, yeah. And Luther especially, like, finding this ridiculous, and if, like, are they actually going to do it? Which they are. So yes. And that sequence where, yeah, they make their way to the CIA headquarters in disguise. They use a fire truck and they pretend to be firemen. And even when, like, say, some of them do some wardrobe change, Luther's the only one that remains in the fire truck. Because, yeah, being the computer expert and such, and monitoring what they're doing. Meanwhile, Claire, she changes wardrobe, most notably. And especially, yeah, because to get close to this one CIA analyst, being played by Ralph Saxon, yeah. Because, yeah, Ralph Saxon's character, the one that most notably goes into that room and where that list is, yeah, she has to get close to him, and I think, yeah, something happened to his drink, and because at one point, and it's obviously a way for him to not go into that room or anything, while Ethan does make his way and has to be lowered down by wires to retrieve it, yeah. For a while, the poor guy is in the bathroom vomiting, and even when he gets out of the bathroom and he thinks he's done, and even when he's holding a garbage can, he's like, no, I'm not done. It was funny. But yeah, so yeah, Ethan, as well as Krieger, Franz Krieger, yeah, that's his first name, them both going in, and, well, they managed to, at one point they knock out one CIA guy, and even when Franz was going to use a knife, but, yeah, no killing, yeah. So them going into the air ducts, and we're coming up to, yeah, one of the most famous parts of the movie, where, yes, Ethan being lowered down with the aid of Franz on wires, and to retrieve the disc, and yeah, the disc of the files, which, by the way, disc is spelled with a K. I don't know why, but I'm sure there's a reason, just, yeah, unbeknownst to me, and I'm sure you know. But I'm not joking, and when I watched the movie and with the subtitles, that's literally how it's spelled, with a K, not a C, a K in disc. Okay, just, okay, if that's how it is, that's fine with me. I don't know, but anyway, so, yeah, Ethan retrieving it, but unfortunately, at one point, Franz, he comes face to face with a rat that's approaching him, and he's trying not to panic, and, also a monitor on the heating system, and just, yeah, And when, like, the rat gets up close to Franz, he panics, accidentally letting go of the wire, and Ethan was this close to hitting the floor. And, boy, had he almost hit the panel, you know, and the alarm would have gone off. And that entire sequence, and when, like, you know, Ethan, like, is telling them that they have to be quiet. Well, everything is quiet. The music stops, and nothing really, and yeah. And definitely right there, like, you're feeling the suspense, and when Ethan is almost, like, at the bottom of the floor on the wires, and he's just like, you know, but with the heating system, and, like, then on his glasses, because his glasses, keep in mind, and they have a very prominent part in the film, because his glasses they have cameras to them. You can't see them, but yeah. And obviously, yeah, Luther can see through Ethan's point of view with those glasses. So then at one point, like, water drops from the glasses, they started to come down, and it's like, yeah, it's gonna happen. They're gonna hit the floor at any point. And when another water drop comes down, and it's gonna get bigger, and and well, thankfully, Ethan's catch the water drop in his hand. Whew. Like a big relief right there. And thankfully, in a nick of time, retrieving the entirety, downloading on the disc, you know, the knock file, and sure enough, yeah, and, well, the CIA analyst, is almost about to come back into the room, and when he has to do this thing where, you know, scanning his eyes and so on, just, yeah. And, well, just in time, and when, you know, Ethan's pulled up, but accidentally, Krieger, it slipped out of his hands, his knife. Oh dear. But thankfully, it landed on the table. It went straight for the table. And by the way, because, William Donlow, yeah, that's his name, the CIA analyst that Ralph Saxon plays. So just want to get that out of the way. When he makes it back into the room, well, of course he spots the knife, and even when he looks up, well, it's like nothing happened. Thankfully, the red lasers and everything, it's back to normal. And they succeeded. They succeeded on getting the disc without them being caught or anything. But, yeah, either way, Kittredge, he still found out that Ethan was present at the headquarters and retrieved the knock list in the disc and such, yeah. And what Kittredge does next is falsely accuse and, well, arrest family members of Ethan's, his mom and uncle. Oh boy, because, yeah, that's one way to get Ethan's attention. And even because when Ethan finds out about this and what he does next. But yeah, and by the way, because we see them physically, but only on the news coverage, yeah. And there's no scene with them interacting with Ethan, yeah. His mother, Margaret Hunt, being played by Laura Brooke, and his uncle, Donald Hunt, being played by Morgan Deere. There was a mentioning of Ethan's father, by the way, who sadly passed away. And I seem to recall, I think, yeah, his father was in the IMF division. So, yeah. So, hey, I mean, you know, like father and son. And, yeah, a nice mention of Ethan's deceased father. Just, yeah. Okay, and actually before Ethan found out that his mother and uncle were arrested and seen this on the news, well, a moment between Ethan and Krieger where, yeah, they don't get into a tussle or anything, just, yeah, like, the little fight they have towards the disc, and Ethan, like, doing a magic trick, you know, where is it? And, you know, pulling it, like, taking it out of, you know, like, the clothing that Claire was wearing. Just, yeah, a good magic trick. Just, yeah, messing around with Krieger, but, yeah. I mean, we could tell that Krieger, he's very intimidating, and little do we know what Krieger is going to be doing next for now. And if you couldn't tell already, because, yeah, something about Krieger. Something about him that doesn't, yeah. But anyways, and even, like, Ethan, he has Luther take good care of the knock list on the disc and such, and, you know, and if, yeah, he has Luther's trust. But then, yes, a little later, Claire, she informs Ethan to come look and see on the TV that, yes, his mother and uncle have been arrested falsely and such. They didn't do anything. But, that's a way for, Kittredge to get Ethan's attention. And thus, at a train station, Ethan calls up Kittredge intentionally and just wanting IMF to come to him to London, because yeah, that's where they're at right now. London, that's where they're hiding. And then after that phone call is over, he then runs into, he's actually right there, Jim. Jim is alive. And Jim explains, what happened, and when he tried to, catch up to Ethan but even when Ethan kept moving and such to different locations he was at up until London, yeah. And apparently, yeah, Jim explains to Ethan that he knows who the mole / Job is, saying that it's Kittredge. Now, you would think, right, that probably Kittredge could be, I don't know, but actually no. Ethan, he discovers himself that it's not Kittredge whom is the mole / the Job. Who it was this whole time, it was Jim. He shot himself, fake shooting him, I guess you could say. Jim didn't legitimately shoot himself with an actual bullet, just a fake bullet or whatever, fake rifle, and, squirted red stuff on him, it's blood, and just, yeah. And Jim was responsible for the death of the other IMF members on that mission at the start of the film, and yeah. Like I said, Ethan, he figures it all out, and, he visually figures it out, and we see it too, and even, Ethan first thought that the whole thing of the car explosion, maybe it was Claire, but no, then quickly realizing that it was Jim. But Ethan's playing along with Jim, thinking that, yes, it's Kittredge who did this, but, yeah, Ethan knows, and we know too, as of now, that the big antagonist, whom was the mole / the Job all this time, was Jim. Not to mention that Ethan looked up to Jim. Yeah, because, as I recall, yeah, Jim was like a mentor or something to Ethan, and the fact that for a guy like that and whom Ethan looked up to, then to be, be betrayed and it's one of the, that kind of stuff we see in movies never fails to be really good, and just, we don't really see coming. Just, oh my god, yeah. Hard to believe, and yeah, because all this time, Jim, who was a big-time member of the IMF, he was a frickin' traitor. Okay, so then a little later, and I think by, the next day, we're getting near the climax in the third act. Well, on a high-speed train, Ethan arranges for, to technically meet Max, but call her up, by giving her the knock list, and it's been hidden somewhere beneath her passenger seat, retrieving it and attempting to to get into the files and such, the code, verify the code, while Luther, nearby Max, preventing it to be downloaded from the computer and such that she has, and, her henchmen. And meanwhile, Ethan collecting the $10,000, and then at one point, Claire, whom I guess apparently, yeah, she did. She technically found out that Jim was alive and meets up with Jim further into the high-speed train, and telling Jim on what they should do with Ethan. And, you really can't tell. I mean, and that's another thing, because as I said, we're not really sure at first, if Claire is really on Ethan's side and what the heck is she doing? But then when it comes up to, say, her, supposedly interacting with Jim and talking about what they're going to do with Ethan and with the millions of dollars, the money, well, Claire was fooled. It wasn't Jim who was sitting right there in a trench coat. It's Ethan, whipping off that mask that resembles Jim. Oh, yeah. He got her good. But then the actual Jim steps in, all geared up and has the gun pointed at Ethan. And so then, after a bit of interrogation, and the dialogue between Jim, Ethan, and Claire, well, Ethan, whipping on the glasses, the glasses that have the cameras, linked to Kittredge, looking at on his watch, and that's when, Ethan reveals to Kittredge that this is the guy whom is the mole / the Job, whom is the traitor, Jim. And Jim is exposed. He's done for, but Jim's not gonna get away that easily. He's still gonna get the heck out of there. And he attempts to shoot Ethan, but Claire steps in, and she takes the gunshot. And it's really hard to tell that, whose side Claire was really on. I would say probably more likely Ethan's, and, and it's hard to tell, how did she really found out that Jim was alive, but at the same time, I feel as though that Claire, not really a bad person entirely, just, and how it's established in the movie, but anyways, and what we sense and feel towards the character of Claire and in that situation, just, So, Jim escaping, and when Ethan, holding Claire, and she's done for, sadly. Well, Ethan chasing after Jim outside of the high-speed train, and then at one point, we see Krieger, and Krieger, he was also a villain working alongside with Jim, and he was one of the assassins, not just Jim, but Krieger as well. And with that knife, and even when Jim recognizes that, the specific knife that Krieger had, and the same knife that was used to kill some of the IMF members. And by the way, at the beginning of the film, and when each of the IMF members were there were a couple of others that were watching Ethan and the others. Drunken female IMF agent who was played by Valentina Yakunia, if I'm even pronouncing that right. I don't know. You know me sometimes still. And drunk male IMF agent played by Marek Vatsut. They were the two who were acting like a drunk couple, and they were actually IMF agents who were, keeping their eye on Ethan and the others, and and there were a few others even at the restaurant where Kittredge and Ethan met up, and when Kittredge suspected that it was Ethan who was the traitor, but by this point, no. Thankfully, Kittredge discovers that it's Jim. So, where I was, they're on top of the high-speed train, and Krieger emerges in a red chopper, and and I will say, because some of the visual effects in the first Mission Impossible film, they were pretty good, and the fact that where we have a CG chopper, and when it goes into a tunnel. Not to mention, because with ILM doing some of the visual effects, and also John Knoll, he made a cameo, apparently, in the film. I didn't even see him. He was one of the, passengers on the high-speed train. So, nice to see, because, usually some of the, ILM members, say, John Knoll and such, They've made cameos in some of the films that they work on, most notably the Star Wars prequels. So, Anyways, so, that sequence where they're on top of the high-speed train, and where they're almost, near, say, collisions or stuff like that, and even when they make their way into the tunnel, and Krieger has to lower down the chopper, and because there's, a piece of wire and such that Ethan attaches onto Krieger's chopper, and Krieger has no choice but to, have the chopper he's flying in go into the tunnel. And when it comes up to the inside of the tunnel in the high-speed train, and even at one point when cutting back to, say, Max, still trying to, crack down the codes and to contain the knock list, but eventually she does get defeated as well. Yes, and thanks on Luther. Yep. But with Ethan trying to go after Jim and dealing with Krieger on the chopper, just, it's awesome. The action, Danny Elfman's music, and, the little fight between, Jim and Ethan, and when Ethan's struggling at one point and he's on one side of the train, and, there's another incoming high-speed train, but he avoids it quickly, just in time, and when he gets on top of the chopper, and you have the Mission Impossible theme playing, that's definitely a way of showing that, now, Ethan is now able to get into action and such. It's kind of like in the Indiana Jones movies, where at times, like, when Indy's theme plays, that's when the hope gets back into him, and now he's ready to do some butt-whooping, just, So, yeah, and, the defeat of Jim and Krieger, well, Jim, both Jim and Ethan, they're holding onto the chopper, well, and even when Krieger, he tries to use the propellers to, try to kill Ethan, but thankfully that doesn't happen. Ethan implanting a tiny bomb that sticks on Krieger's plane, not plane, chopper. I gotta slow down talking. And of course, yeah, an explosion goes off and from inside Krieger's chopper, and yeah, overall, Krieger and Jim, they meet their demise, and golly, you can imagine how painful it is, like, and when Jim's body is like scraping on the train tracks that fast, like, golly. But in addition with the explosion of the chopper, and thankfully the high-speed train does stop. It slows down, but with the chopper still attached on to the high-speed train and bit of the propellers, like, and like Ethan's trying to like end his neck. Oh, what a sigh of relief. And one of the conductors behind the high-speed train, when he raises up and he sees it, he passes out. That's funny. And yeah, overall, our villains are defeated, and Max is brought in by the IMF, and as of now, Ethan is no longer a fugitive, yeah, he's all good. And his mother and uncle no longer being under arrest, and yeah, all ends well for our characters, as of now, most notably Ethan and Luther. Oh, by the way, the bomb that he sticks on, that's like a gum pack, yeah. But anyways, I just wanted to throw that out because I almost forgot. Okay, just how to describe that specific bomb. Right, anyways, so, after all that, the epilogue, and by this point, Ethan and Luther, they've been, reassigned, like, they've been, like, in other words, they've been brought back into the IMF, but Ethan, he resigns. Yeah, he's done, or so he thinks. And the dialogue that we get from Luther and IMF, and the fact that Luther can now live peacefully, and, and even though, because he's back in business, and IMF, still, it's all good for our two main characters. And they say goodbye, for now, while Ethan boarding on a plane. And, it doesn't take too long for when he boards a plane and he's heading back home, a flight attendant steps in, and yeah, I believe, yeah, it's the same flight attendant that we saw at the start of the film when she approached Jim. And yeah, and to name some of the other cast members of the film, because, like, yeah, the train engineer, that's right, train engineer, was played by David Schneider, and who passed out after seeing the destruction of the chopper, and yeah. There's also female executive in train, played by Helen Lindsay. There's CIA agent, played by Pat Starr. CIA lobby guard, played by Richard D. Sharp. CIA escort guard, being played by Randall Paul. CIA agent, yeah, another one who goes by CIA agent, played by Sue Doucette, I don't know. Again, me sometimes. Public official, played by Graydon Gould, and MI5 agent, played by Tony Vogue. Large man, that's how he's credited, played by Michael Rogers. And steward on train, played by David Fillane. And the air stewardess, yes, Melissa Natchbol. I think, yeah, I might be getting that right, but yeah. So yeah, the air stewardess, approaching up to Ethan using a coded phrase. Apparently, Ethan's being asked to go on another mission, even though he retired, still. And yeah, the coded phrase that the stewardess did, to to each Jim and Ethan, and like, which movie would you like to watch, and the specific like, movie like one of the Caribbean and such. Just smart move, and that's really cool. Yeah, again, that being the coded phrase, like, very clever. And yeah, so is Ethan going to accept this new mission? Well, obviously, because when we get the next, the next Mission Impossible film, and from there on, because again, this being the start of this franchise, and just, who'd have thought, those in 1996, that this would be the beginning of what would come next in the later years. And again, this being something big for Tom Cruise in his acting career. Just, and what a great way to end it off. And not to mention, we get a new version of the Mission Impossible theme by U2. It's like, rap and such, which is really good, It's really good, What more do I have to say? And I'm sure you agree too. But, the first Mission Impossible film from 1996. Again, the one that started it all. Yes, it's amazing. It really is. And even, like, again, rewatching it, it is, still holds up. No doubt about it. Everything from beginning to end. The story, the plot line, the cast of characters, the great talents, and from, say, Tom Cruise, Jon Voight, Vin Rhames, Jean Reno, Henry Czerny, and Kristen Scott Thomas, Emmanuel Burt, Vanessa Redgrave. The list goes on. Everybody was fantastic. And the visual effects, the action, the sequences, awesome moments, stuff we didn't expect to happen, like you didn't see coming. And the dialogue, and great lines, and the chemistry from some of these characters, and trying to figure out on whom is on which side, just overall, the first Mission Impossible film from 1996, it's great. It's a masterpiece, wouldn't you say? And I'm giving the first Mission Impossible film, well, why not? 10 out of 10 stars. Yes, 10 out of 10 stars for the first Mission Impossible film. And what about you guys? What did you think of the first Mission Impossible film itself? Well, I assume you started with the one that began everything, right? But if any of you, maybe some of you, did watch the TV show, like even before you started with the movies, I'm sure there are some of you, and any of you that have seen the TV show, what did you think of that? And did you know that when watching the Mission Impossible films, starting with the first one, that, I'm going to enjoy these. And what are some of your favorite moments from the first Mission Impossible film? And with, the storyline, and with the cast of characters, stuff that you did not see coming, were you on the edge of your seat? And just like, oh my gosh, like, your favorite, lines and, sequences, the action-packed stuff, just overall. And also, is this one of your top favorite Mission Impossible films? Just overall, what do you think of the first Mission Impossible film itself, and with what I've had to say, my review, and what did you think of my review? Leave comments and give this review video a like, as always. And so, with all that being said, thank you very much for watching. I hope you guys enjoyed my review of the first Mission Impossible film from 1996. More review videos are coming your way. They're going to be awesome. Keep looking forward, and I will see you guys in the next video / review. And, well, the Mission Impossible review marathon has just begun. Stay tuned for my review of the second installment. Take care and peace out.